I just finished a 6-month-long campaign last Saturday, and a player in said campaign, who we will name Jake for privacy reasons, asked me to join the next campaign I would host. I told him, along with the rest of the players, that I wouldn't reserve player spots until I started, actually drafting up the world. Come Sunday, I have a short draft going, and I make an announcement to the server to tell people to DM me if they want to reserve a spot, and that there would only be 5 spots. I got 3 DMs that same day, and 2 others the following day, none of which were from Jake. Tuesday comes around, and after touching up the draft a little bit more, I make an announcement telling players to start thinking about characters. Jake immediately runs to General and flips out. When I told him that he never responded to joining my campaign after the initial announcement, he said he reserved a spot when we talked about him joining on Saturday. When I apologized and reiterated that I didn't let anyone in until Sunday, he claimed I lied to him about getting in and began to insult me, claiming I violated his trust and that I wasn't a real friend. Now, after I tried to talk to him, he just stopped responding after about 2 minutes. Then 10 minutes go by, I get another DM from an existing player saying that Jake asked them for their spot and offered to buy them some dice sets for it. At this point, I was pretty miffed. He was going to such an extent to join my campaign to bribe others to get out of their player spot. I just told him off afterwards, and he hasn't talked to me at all since. Anyone know what I should do without just adding an extra person in the campaign? Other than not letting him in, I don't think you should do anything about this. Look, I respect dedication, but this level of dedication is just a little bit much. At the very least, this DM should feel some pride. Jake going this far to get into your campaign means you've got something good going on. Or he's just crazy. That too. I am relatively new to Dungeons & Dragons. One of my buddies tried a campaign, and it went about 5 sessions in. It just fell apart, but we are still friends. Plus, Buddy wanted to be a player and has been a DM essentially for 10 years straight, and wanted a break. 100% understandable. So, another friend of mine offered to DM, but on the condition his wife could play. I had some reservations, but I didn't feel a major need to voice them. Spoiler alert, not saying anything was a huge screw-up on my part. We have our Session 0, etc. The campaign is a Save the World homebrew campaign. We also establish all of our characters being more good-leaning, with the most morally ambiguous character as being chaotic neutral. Except for the DM's wife, who goes chaotic evil. Everyone thought it was weird/odd, including the DM, but he let it slide. Whatever. Problems began at Session 1. Note, this is my second campaign ever. DM's wife, we'll call her Beatrice, begins screwing over party members immediately, stealing gold from player characters, items from player characters, ambassador documents, which one player character really needed, and being new, she was not really used to just not metagaming. It was frustrating, and still actually pisses me off, even now. But after a few sessions, Beatrice doesn't even come to play, but didn't quit either. She claims she's usually busy, etc. Cool. We continue on our way with relative ease and far less difficulty and frustration. She was usually playing video games during our sessions because we could hear her scream about them in the background of husband/DM's mic, so we knew she was available and very much not busy. Worse, she does want to continue to play, so we found out later that there's a solo session between her and the DM to get her caught up, which pissed the party off. Somehow she got further in the story faster than we did, despite her being missing for about 2 months. The final straw. We're on a journey to get some ore or something, and we somehow caught up with her when she finally decided to play. Her player character has a husband now, and she has a kid on the way, something she tries to do in every game, which I seem to find really annoying personally and find it cumbersome for party play, but anyway. Her player character and in-game husband are acting suspicious as hell, so it naturally leads the party to confronting her, and the DM just gotta let it happen. It continues to escalate, and then the DM starts to get irritated, but is not taking major steps to diffuse anything. Then she attacks my buddy's player character, and so naturally he's going to retaliate. It's in his player character's nature, honor and whatnot. But if this particular attack hit her, it would kill her without a shadow of a doubt. So the DM screams at the top of his lungs, "Kill my wife, see what happens!" This was not the in-game character, this was the DM. Out of game, mind you. Alright, I stopped the game. All of the party members are my friends. I've known the DM and his wife for a year at most, and I'm not nearly as close with them as the other party members. And we all had the big meet with Jesus about how that phrase is not something I thought I'd see in an RPG horror story, but okay. Anyway, we said that's not okay. That's favoritism, which we've already gotten pissed at you for, and both her and the NPC you are rolling for brought this on yourselves. Y'all both could have stopped. She knows she's going to get attacked doing this crap. How could she not? And you are making the NPC do visibly suspicious stuff, and throwing some kind of explosive at us is going to warrant a fight. And she and the husband NPC are clearly working together. But you don't kill other player characters, is his response. He makes other excuses and essentially said, I was just rolling, bro. It left a really sour taste in the party's mouth, besides him and Beatrice, that is. And our party came to the conclusion that both could have stopped if they wanted to. It was blatantly obvious a fight was going to start if they kept doing what they were doing, and they attacked first. So we make a decision to end the game in a private chat not containing the DM and his wife, because they are my friends and they don't know the DM as well as I do. So I just go ahead and break it to the DM myself, which I did not mind. I called him and was professional about it. I said we feel like there's some things going on behind the scenes between him and his wife, and we felt it was unfair. I also said the final straw was essentially forcing our characters into a fight with his wife and then getting mega pissed when he could have stopped it a long time ago. I maybe spoke for a few minutes straight, just trying to keep the water clear, not step on any toes, and just air out the laundry, so to speak. Nothing I said was personal or an insult. I said all of this in such a way and also made it known that maybe we could still play or do a different campaign and we could still be friends, etc. Or we could find a new DM and just play together. Then this is almost exactly what he said. Yeah, so I plan to end the game anyway. You are all assholes and you play like crap. You almost killed a player character who is also my wife, and no one does that. I've been looking for different players anyway to replace you, and then he hung up. That was it. No real discussion or why. He essentially just said, screw you, screw your feelings, I'm right, you're wrong. The phone call was 3 minutes long, and he only spoke for the last 10 seconds and just hung up. I didn't even get a word in after he said that stuff. I don't play anything with him or his wife anymore. In person, we don't even hang out, and I never really plan on talking to him or her ever again. We knew each other for 3 years, and that's how he treats me and my friends. I don't want his ass around. When in situations like this, it is easy to be incredibly frustrated because, yeah, the situation is incredibly frustrating. You have a DM who is showing clear favoritism. The whole breaking point situation was absurd. The DM creating the situation where the entire party is suspicious and uncertain, egging on this PvP battle, and then for some reason backing down at the very end when he realizes it might actually happen. We've got a theme in this video, and that's bitterness in TTRPG groups is just never ever going to work out. If you have a group of people who don't like each other, they're not going to be able to play any sort of tabletop game together effectively. And here we see a group that's quickly turning against both another player, aka the wife, and the dungeon master, aka the husband. That is just a recipe for disaster, and I'm glad everyone was able to figure it out. The DM not being able to take the criticism or figure out what to do with their campaign is just, well, that's the icing on the cake. So I'm the forever DM of our long-established crew, and despite the gags, I honestly prefer it to playing. World building, setting up systems of politics and cultures, plot hooks, characters, it appeals to me. I always run extremely open, homebrew style, sandbox type games. Go somewhere, there's something to do. The world is your enchilada. Enough preamble though. So in our first campaign, the crew was hired to go to a city aesthetically based around the Islamic Golden Age with flintlocks to sneak into the dungeon below the Sultan's palace and bust out a guy on death row. Standard, Dungeons and Dragons stuff. They got it done easily, but then they went off script. I was prepared for it. They always take the adventure in a direction I didn't see coming. The crew noticed while they were there that the city practiced the chattel slavery of Dragonborn. They did not take kindly to this, especially the Dragonborn bard and his elven druid wife. So they decided to stage a coup, as you do. They had discovered a large force of pirates not far from the city that equaled the men-at-arms under the government. This was actually for a plot hook they never saw, as they took it in a different direction. Instead, they plotted with the head pirate, a real piece of work and recurring villain over many campaigns, to get his help overthrowing this government and installing him as the new regime. Why they thought that was a good idea is beyond me, and in later adventures they decided he had to be overthrown too. But anyway, during the plotting phase, the crew was holed up in an abandoned farmhouse, planning with a messenger from the Pirate King that came knocking with plot-relevant details the DM totally didn't make up on the fly. The messenger was a dragonborn. At our table, they can have wings, a tail, or both, or neither. This will be shortly relevant. After he delivered his message, the dwarven paladin asked for the messenger's name. He did this for 2 reasons. 1, it's very in character for his polite paladin to do that. 2, his player is an old friend of mine, and knows the weakest part of my games is coming up with NPC names on the fly. So he pulls this crap constantly to see what happens. I panicked. My mind went blank. Then I blurted, "Johnny Two Dicks!" Why? Why did I just say that? Why? The world will never know. I certainly don't. The game session derailed for a good 15 minutes as they dug into this. After harassing the poor guy, he finally sighed heavily, dropped his trousers, and yeah, his name was accurate. We're all in our 30s and 40s, but the crew was giggling like 13-year-olds. They questioned this in character once the laughter died down, and Johnny defensively said some Dragonborn have wings or tails, and he just happens to have 2 dicks. Lay off! It's a minor horror story, mostly of me embarrassing myself, but I will never live it down. This was over a year ago, and this 2-year-long and still going strong campaign, and I still hear about it every other of our weekly sessions. This is why I always keep a random name generator on hand just in case, even if sometimes even that still fails me. Like seriously, Bariderlig? Baritumlin? Who the hell is gonna remember that? But hey, at the end of the day, at least Johnny Two Dicks is memorable. These players are never going to forget him, and the DM gets a little bit of a running gag. I mean, you can make lemonade out of these lemons, and you can take advantage of the situation to make your game even better, even if it is going to be dorky. Look, your game is not going to be high fantasy all the time. Sometimes you're going to have a gag. Sometimes your party are going to turn into a bunch of immature teenagers, and that is okay. It's okay to have a laugh at yourself every once in a while. Even the toppest of the top tier have to deal with stuff like this. Matt Mercer had the Ball Eater as a ship in his game for months on end, for crying out loud. It's okay to laugh at yourself, even if it is just a little bit. So after 9 years of being on an RPG-themed forum, I finally decided to GM a game in a setting I created using mutants and masterminds. I hadn't GM'd in 15-ish years, and I wasn't even experienced in it, but I wanted to give it a shot. Requesting superhero-themed characters, I was delighted to find 24-ish people submitting characters, but this led to a lot of work trying to sort out bios, as I could only take 8 to 10 people. In the meantime, one guy PMs me directly to discuss the creation of an alien gladiator I felt was perfect for my setting. The guy was super friendly, but awkward. Think like Sheldon Cooper. Remember that. Mr. Actually, a guy I considered a decent online friend, despite an excessively pedantic attitude, submitted a less cool character, a dwarven powerhouse, but owing to his enthusiasm for the setting and being friends with him, I let him in as well. Most of the characters and players were lovely, but problem 1, the recruitment thread is so busy I don't have time to delve into every post. I can barely read all the submissions. I nearly ran 2 teams until another player warned me off it due to inevitable burnout. Problem 2. Spy Guy, an online sorta friend, is totally hurt that he didn't get in my game, despite submitting a massively inappropriate character, a super spy when I requested superheroes, and voiced his taste for the spy genre. Problem 3. Sheldon pops up repeatedly in the recruitment thread, telling people how they should be writing submissions. In my thread! I'm confused and tell him to, stop thread nannying, but it's already annoying Mr. Actually, and they debate back and forth. The recruitment thread is so busy I don't really have time to delve into why, so I just kinda ask them to knock it off. Unwisely, I let both of these guys into the game, even when Mr. Actually asks me not to put them on the same team. He still thought I was running 2 games. Me and the other players roll our eyes at the high school BS and just roll with it. I figured they'll just be grown-ups and get over it. Yeah, bad idea. Problem 4. 2 players ghost almost immediately. A year or so later, they'd given their reasons. One lost his computer, and another couldn't access the site in her country. Problem 5. Mr. Actually, for some reason, decides that his character needs to speak French. all the time, doing entire character posts in the language. This irks players who don't understand it, and Sheldon's character has a language translator power, so he insists on translations. I tell Mr. Actually to either include it all translated, which he does in his annoying manner where it's all buried at the bottom of his posts. Problem 6. Mr. Actually and Sheldon, they keep their feud going. When Mr. Actually has his character announce, "I am Le Petit Hercule, Little Hercules," Sheldon's alien character uses her translator power to go, "Your name is Little Hercules, the Little Hercules? That's a bit long for a name, isn't it?" And they're off. The characters get snippy with each other, and it's very obvious the players are using their mutual dislike to snipe in game. It also becomes very clear that Sheldon does not really get how people talk. "I'm not a wordsmith," he whines via private message, and his oh-so-quirky outsider who doesn't get humans character just comes off as rude and intrusive rather than funny, but he thinks her high charisma score should lead to people just treating her well. Problem 7. One GM warns me that Sheldon's the worst rules lawyer he's ever encountered in all his years of gaming. Other players say they don't like playing with him. When Mr. Actually tries to play his 4-6 character investigating while in street clothes so people will underestimate him, he creates a week-long debate in the out-of-character chat because Sheldon cannot accept this, and his character voices his own concerns. I tell him to let Actually play his character the way he wants, and he PMs me, "I want you to understand, this is a slap in the face to me." Keep in mind, he does not know if his plans will actually work, but he will not stop acting on them until I demand he stops. But I'm right, was endless with him. Problem 8. Despite me repeatedly telling them to cut it out, they keep at it. Sheldon is the worst, but Mr. Actually just keeps antagonizing him using open passive aggression. This makes Sheldon explode repeatedly in private messages and whine openly. I ask the other players for advice, and they're split on who's behaving worse. Finally, I get furious with them. It was when Mr. Actually snarks, "Nice consistency," over something Sheldon has been doing contrary to a past statement. And anyway, I demand them stop it entirely, and the next one who snipes gets kicked out. But even tiny things set off floods of private messages. Sheldon correcting Mr. Actually's understanding of rules sends Mr. Actually crying, and the guy comments on Sheldon's character's large eyes too, since he uses an anime avatar for his character, and Sheldon thinks this should be another warning for Mr. Actually. Problem 9. Sheldon's rules lawyering is so extreme. He wants his character to have regular power usage I consider game breaking. I just snap at him repeatedly. I really don't want to kick him out of the game because, I don't know, I don't like awkward situations. I want people on the forum to get along. I felt bad for his obvious lack of social skills, etc. But eventually he sends me private message after private message whining about various stupid things. Like when he made a speech and rolled without being asked to right at the end of the first mission and I blew it off. He criticized me for criticizing his playstyle, etc, etc. And at that point I kicked him out. Oh, the whining I then heard. Problem 10. I finally let Spy Guy onto the team with people having left. He promptly decides to have his character act as the leader, suggests the team investigate something, then continues, "So, on the drive there," just moving things along without any sort of say from the other characters. Then makes 4 investigative rolls without being asked to at the scene of the crime. When other players rebuke, he argues back, and I tell him to dial it in. He begs to be allowed to keep his rolls since they were high, and then I get PMs from other players saying Spy Guy has a reputation as bad as Sheldon, but instead for stepping on other players' toes and trying to hog all the glory for himself. He later writes a long in-character conversation that mangles English, his only language, worse than anything I've ever read. I just can't win. In the end, my enthusiasm for the game was ruined by all of this, and I eventually let it peter out. All I got for attempting to game master was nuisance gamers, a friend misbehaving and deliberately antagonizing a clearly off player even when I told him not to, and non-stop rules lawyering. Other game masters told me it's often like this. Players don't respect the work the GM has to do and try to be the only player. It took me ages to forgive Mr. Actually for this, and he subsequently proved me right for finding him equally bad during the game because he turned his pedantic actually to everything else I wrote on the forum. And yeah, he admitted his own faults in the game, and when I asked the other players if I'd messed up, they insisted I didn't do anything wrong, but him behaving like an ass afterwards is what finally made me feel less guilty about yelling at him too. Here's a neat and somewhat unnecessary social lesson for all you fellers out there. Forcing two people who really don't like each other together is not gonna work out. Look, maybe in small doses, they can tolerate each other, but a TTRPG game, any TTRPG game, that's not exactly what I call small doses. In tabletop, you spend inordinate amounts of time with each other, and therefore bitterness is going to rise, and that is never a good thing. Look, sometimes your player characters are going to dislike each other, but the players need to be a team working together to create a good story. And if there is bitterness, it's gonna show, it's gonna fester, and the game isn't gonna be doing so great. Hey everyone, long-time reader, first-time poster. Recently, with the whole pandemic situation, I've been playing a lot of Dungeons & Dragons, online, of course, which has led me to think a lot about my past with Dungeons & Dragons. I have been DMing since I was 16. I have actually only been a player in 2 campaigns that went more than 2 sessions. The first was an amazing campaign done by a friend of mine who made basically a whole new world, with literally thousands of years of written lore. He pretty much wrote a novel about the world we were in, and it was awesome. The second, however, was one of the worst experiences of my D&D life, and it all started on Reddit. So about a year ago, I had been looking for some new online friends to play Dungeons & Dragons with. None of my friends liked DMing, and I had been burnt out on it myself, and I wanted to play as a player for once, so I went to Reddit and managed to find a group to join. On the surface, it was a bit odd, as I had to apply, but I was quickly informed that it was just to weed out people who were barely literate, since this was all going to be over text, and they also wanted to weed out people who were particularly intolerant, as one of the members was gay and that caused problems in her previous group. I understood and agreed, passing the first test easily, as it was just a yes or no about being a dickhead, basically. The second test was a bit odder, as my interviewer, a woman, wanted me to roleplay a slice of life session with her to make sure I was a good enough writer, I guess? I agreed, still not seeing the red flags that were pretty clearly there, and did it. It was weird, but normal, minus 1 or 2 times where she tried to make it somewhat sexual, which I shut down. I really wasn't interested. Naturally, and regardless, I was told I passed, and I was let in the group. I was pretty excited to get in and get to role-playing, so I rolled up my character, a human cleric, that day. Even though the first session was a week away, as I waited, I also got to know the group. There was the person who interviewed me, we'll call her Sam, the DM, Sam's friend, who we'll call Kate, and Sam's boyfriend, who we'll call Dave. They were all pretty cool, but also a bit off. Dave was super nerdy and awkward, but was an alright guy. Kate was very, anime, and would occasionally send naions with the messages, and the DM was super chill, but just seemed a bit off too. But Dave, Kate, and the DM, they were all normal compared to Sam. What I didn't realize at the time, but now know, was Sam was a total psychopath. During the first session, she DMs me and starts flirting with me, and not subtly. Now keep in mind, we really haven't spoken much at all, and all she knows about me is that I like Dungeons & Dragons, and I am a guy. I didn't even tell her my real name. I brush it off, and just keep playing. How? Ignoring her DMs and hoping that she will just move on. Things get worse though when she, during the course of the campaign, makes a point to belittle and attack Dave while praising me. For example, during an encounter, Dave rolled a nat 1 and failed to kill an enemy that was at low health and was focusing Sam. Since I moved next to it and attacked and killed it, that led to Sam chastising Dave for not protecting her and calling me her white knight. I kinda just brushed it off since it didn't really seem to bother Dave, Kay, or the DM who actually knew Sam, so I figured maybe this is just how they, joked around. The rest of the campaign goes pretty normally, with Sam repeatedly DMing me flirtatious messages about the campaign, which I ignore. When the session ends, we all thank the DM and break to meet up again next week. Only Sam keeps messaging me. Eventually, I decide it would be best to nip this in the bud and just tell her I'm not interested. I tell her that I'm already in a relationship and that I'm not really comfortable with the flirting thing, but that I would love to be friends with her. She takes it pretty well and agrees that it was inappropriate, but also asks me not to tell Dave. I reluctantly agree on the condition that she tells him herself. The next couple sessions are pretty normal, and although the flirting stops, Sam keeps chastising Dave's character and flirting with mine. Although Dave and Kat seem to be good sports about it, and the two even start joking about their characters setting up ours. So I mostly just continue to ignore it. Besides, my character is basically a celibate monk, so I consider it could just be ribbing about that. Then one session, it gets particularly bad. Dave's character is a stereotypical edgy knight. We had just taken down a campaign of cultists, and Kate suggested we interrogate them, but Dave, acting fully in character, says that he wants to torture them to get information, to which my lawful good monk disagrees with him. Sam, despite being true evil, decides to side with me and proceeds to unleash a torrent of insults against Dave and also Dave's character. The kind of stuff that would make a nun blush. After she's done, Dave says that he's done for the day and we all agree to break up for now. I DM Dave about an hour later and ask him if he's okay. And I also DM Kate and the DM and ask them if this is a usual thing and what they think we should do about it. All of them tell me the same thing. It's okay, don't worry and don't get involved. I reluctantly let it go. The next day, I wake up to a series of messages from Sam, the first couple telling me that she loves me and that she wants to be with me, and then she sent 9 to 10 paragraph long one-sided sexually explicit roleplay between our characters, and then she sent me a series of... Oh my god. I tell her I am seriously not comfortable with any of this and to stop messaging me privately. At this point, I'm also considering leaving the group, but she apologizes and tells me that she's just off her meds. I tell her I'm still not comfortable with us DMing like this, and she says she'll stop. About an hour, 1 hour later, I get another DM from her, this time telling me that she told Dave about us and that he's now threatening to kill her. She has nowhere else to turn. I tell her I'll talk to Dave and that he seems like a calm and reasonable person, but that if she is scared, she should call the police or tell someone who can help, given that I wasn't even in the same country as her. I DM Dave and ask him what is going on, and he says he doesn't know what I'm talking about. So I explain and he doesn't respond for a while. Then about an hour later, he tells me that he just broke up with Sam and that this was the first time he had heard any of this. Meanwhile, wait, they were dating that whole time? I mean, this isn't the first time I missed that two people are in a relationship, but frankly, I never thought it would happen on camera. I mean, anyway. Meanwhile, Sam starts messaging me and talking about how, now Dave's out of the way, we can be together, and that I'm a true alpha, which is the complete opposite of true. I tell her I'm not interested, but she thinks it's part of some act and tells me that she's only dating Dave to make fun of him and use him for money. As this is going on, Kate starts messaging me, calling me a homewrecker, and Dave sends me an extremely long message that I can only classify as an incel manifesto. I finally decide to block all three of them and message the DM and tell him I am out. Interestingly enough, when I tell him this, he says that he actually doesn't know any of these people really, and that Sam was secretly paying him to DM. He thought that they were all pretty weird too, but the money was good, so he just left them alone. I don't use the word unhinged a lot, but yeah, that's perfect to describe this whole situation. I have no idea what just happened, and frankly, I don't really want an explanation. Everyone here is crazy. Even Kate jumped in the crazy train at the end there. Look, I'm gonna be honest. The second I see warning signs of this magnitude, I recommend that you bounce as soon as humanly possible. The flirting thing is absolutely unacceptable. I respect this guy's tolerance because the moment I start getting those messages, yeah, no level of good D&D is worth that level of uncomfortable. And with that fascinating story, we are going to end today's episode of RPG Horror Stories. If you guys enjoyed, then please do leave a like. If you want to see more of my content, then you can check out Tavern Adjacent, our podcast where we talk all things tabletop role-playing games while also taking some of your voicemail horror stories. Crick Crab's coming on the show, so if you want to check that out, it's in the cards. And while you're there, subscribe to Crispy's Tavern to get more of our content as it comes out. And finally, if you want to leave your own stories thoughts, go down to the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment Femcel to let me know you made it to the end of the video. Next, like, comment, subscribe. I will see you all next time. Farewell.